In this module, we will examine the function and operation of the Flight Management System, the FMS, by describing the operation of the Flight Management Computers, FMCs, and examining data that can be entered and reviewed at the Flight Management System Control Display Units, CDUs. The description and operation sections of this topic will discuss the functions of the FMS, the different modes of navigation, automatic VOR and DME tuning, and FMS performance modes. The Fokker 100 incorporates a dual Honeywell flight management system. The system comprises two control display units, or CDUs, located on the pedestal on the flight deck, and two flight management computers, or FMCs, located in the avionics bay, and the various FMS inputs and dependent systems. The FMS enables pilots to program an entire flight plan in lateral and vertical navigation through entries and selections made at the CDU keypad, and to monitor flight plan data and performance predictions at the CDU screen. CDU pages and CDU operation will be discussed fully later in this module. The FMS uses flight plan data from its active navigation database to define a lateral and vertical path from origin to destination according to the flight plan selected at the CDU. The FMS compares actual aircraft position with desired position and issues steering commands to AFCAS accordingly. The installation of a flight management system on the Fokker 100 greatly reduces pilot workload through optimizing the performance of the aircraft. The flight management system provides four essential functions for aircraft auto flight control: lateral and vertical navigation from origin to destination, optimum aircraft performance along the calculated vertical path through a combination of vertical steering commands and thrust targets, aircraft guidance along the entire flight profile through coupling the FMS steering commands to AFCAS nav and profile modes, and position and navigate display at the navigation display together with messages at the primary flight display. To perform these functions, the FMS utilizes data from the following inputs: the inertial reference system, DMEs, VORs, and the ILS. In addition, the FMS receives information from the air data computers, clocks, and engine sensors. The pilots communicate with the flight management system through entries made at the CDU and activate or override these entries through selections made at the flight mode panel. With data from these sources, the FMS performs the calculations necessary to provide commands to the AFCAS and the Flight Data Recorder system. The FMS also uses the system inputs together with information held in the FMS database to provide automatic tuning for DMEs and VORs and to provide display information at the EFIS. To continue this topic, we'll take a closer look at the navigation function of the FMS. This function combines navigation data from the database, range and bearing data from DMEs and VORs, and IRS position data to produce altitude and airspeed data from the ADCs, a lat-long position for the aircraft, heading and true airspeed, track and ground speed, and wind velocity. The FMS also uses localizer deviation during approaches to make position updates. The flight management system has two primary modes of navigation with differing levels of position accuracy. Radio and IRS is when the FMS receives radio navigate position updates and a blend of IRS position updates from the three IRSs. This mode gives the most accurate position information. In the IRS-only mode, the IRSs feed position data to the FMS. This mode of navigation is still very accurate. though position data is dependent on the accuracy of the IRS alignment at the departure point and IRS position drift. Both RI and IRS-only modes allow coupling of the FMS navigation and profile modes to AFCAS. In these modes, full FMS auto flights are possible. The FMS will automatically select the navigation mode that gives the lowest error expectation. The current active mode is displayed on the CDU progress page. In this example, the radio IRS mode is active. We will be discussing CDU pages later in this module. The radio IRS mode uses radio navigation and IRS position for navigation. 3 types of radio information are used by the FMS for position determination. For the most accurate radio position determination, the FMS tunes 2 DMEs from NavAid information in the navigation database. For accurate row-row positioning, the intersect angle between the selected stations must be between 30 and 150 degrees. Where NavAid density is insufficient for DME-DME navigation, the FMS selects row theta position determination using bearing and distance information from a co-located VOR DME. And as we have already seen, the FMS uses localizer information during ILS approaches to make position updates. In this instance, the FMS does not provide automatic tuning for the ILS, though it will auto-tune an ILS DME for display. If the FMS receives no radio information for 5 minutes, it automatically reverts to the I mode. This mode is sustainable and accurate for long periods. If radio information becomes available, the FMS returns to the RI mode and updates FMS position data accordingly. Under normal circumstances in a West European environment, row-row position determination is always available from DME-DME radio navigation. Under normal circumstances, IRS position data is always available. The vertical navigation function of the FMS performs calculations using vertical position or altitude from an ADC, vertical speed from the IRS, and ground speed to produce performance information. The FMS performance function calculates the optimum vertical profile for the selected route. In calculating this profile, the FMS uses figures held in its own performance database. This database contains information on the aerodynamic model of the airframe and the engine model of the aircraft, either 620-15 or 650-15 Rolls-Royce Tay engines. Navigation data for the geographic area of operation is drawn from the active navigation database, together with essential initialization data on the flight plan to be followed from origin to destination with desired routing, aircraft weight and fuel on board, and performance mode. We will discuss performance mode in detail shortly. In addition to this information, the performance function of the FMS uses dynamic data from the ADCs and engine sensors. The FMS uses all these data sources to calculate predictions for fuel, time, flight level, top of climb and top of descent positions, and step climb recommendations. Using vertical navigation information, the FMS performance function calculates for vertical steering commands, sets thrust and speed targets, and determines flight levels that optimize the vertical profile for the selected flight plan. These performance calculations take into account speed and altitude constraints at en route waypoints. To produce performance calculations for vertical path predictions, the FMS requires route information from departure to destination airport, details of aircraft weight, cruising flight level, and cost. The cost index is a figure based on the ratio of fixed operating costs and fuel costs. The figure is determined by the airline and entered by the pilot at the CDU. The pilot can also select a performance mode for the entire flight profile by selections at the mode pages on the CDU. We will examine these pages closely in a later topic. There are 3 modes that apply over the flight profile. These are known as the strategic modes. The economy mode calculates a compromise between minimum fuel cost and the cost of crew and maintenance. If engine power is decreased, fuel cost is minimized, but flight time and therefore crew and maintenance costs increase. The FMS calculates for a profile that will give the overall lowest cost. In the minimum fuel mode, the FMS produces the performance calculations that will minimize the overall fuel cost. This does, however, increase flight duration, crew costs, and maintenance costs. In the minimum time mode, the FMS controls thrust to fly the aircraft at the maximum safe speed within the aircraft's flight envelope. Fuel consumption will increase accordingly. If the pilot makes no strategic mode selections, the FMS will fly the aircraft in economy mode. A new strategic mode can be selected, normally pre-flight, by pressing the key on the CDU next to the desired strategic mode. Look at the information displayed on the CDU screen and select a new strategic mode. With a new strategic mode selected, the FMS performs the necessary calculations for vertical path predictions according to the constraints of the new performance mode. The chosen strategic mode determines performance over the whole flight profile. The pilot can, however, alter performance modes over phases of flight. Flight phase performance management is known as the FMS tactical mode. Tactical modes can be selected during each phase of flight, climb, cruise and descent through selection of the tactical mode pages of the CDU. Tactical modes replace the selected strategic mode during the selected flight phase. During the climb phase, pilots can replace the strategic mode with maximum climb or manual speed. In maximum climb, the FMS calculates speed to give maximum climb angle. From the tactical cruise page, pilots can select maximum endurance or manual speed. In the maximum endurance mode, the FMS calculates a speed that results in the lowest possible drag. From the tactical descent page, the FMS allows selection of maximum descent or manual speed. With maximum descent selected, the FMS issues commands to fly at maximum allowable speed at idle power, causing a maximum angle of descent. Each tactical mode allows manual speed selection, giving the pilot direct FMS speed command control at the CDU for the current phase of flight. The FMS presents situational modes on the CDU flight plan pages as appropriate. Situational modes are immediate climb, immediate descent, and deceleration. The display function of the FMS takes data and calculations from the FMCs to provide visual outputs at the main instrument panel. The FMS receives performance and navigation data, and active flight plan details, plus pilot-selected display mode and range at the EFIS control panel. FMS display outputs are seen on the captain's and first officer's primary flight displays and navigation displays. Display data that is shown at the PFD includes Flight Director, minimum descent altitude and MDA bug, and the FMS generated messages: add drag, less drag, decelerate, and altitude change. The FMS also supplies display data to the navigation display when the EFIS display select is in the map or plan position at the EFIS control panel. The map mode, shown here, displays FMS-generated data on track pointer, ground speed, wind velocity, cross-track distance, and vertical deviation. The map displays also show information on the active waypoint taken from the FMS database. The FMS generates map symbols for display at the ND in both the map and plan modes. Select the plan mode at the EFIS control panel now in order to preview these symbols. In the plan mode and the map mode, the navigation display will show various map symbols from the database. These symbols are displayed according to selections made at the EFIS control panel push buttons. Touch the airport push button to display idents for all airports in the area. Airports in the area are shown in magenta. Note that departure and destination airports are displayed in white and are not dependent on EFIS control panel selections. Non-directional beacons are displayed as magenta triangles when the NDB push button is selected. Press the NDB push button to display area NDBs. Now select this display off by pressing the push button again. The VOR DME push button shows area VORs as a cross symbol, DMEs as a circle, and VOR DMEs as a circle on a cross, together with station identifiers. Tuned radio nav aids are shown in cyan. Others in the area are displayed in magenta. This display shows two VOR DMEs, a DME, and the tuned VOR DME. Pressing the waypoint push button displays the FMS database stored waypoints for the display range selected. En route waypoints are normally displayed as part of the flight plan, with the next active waypoint displayed in green. Press the waypoint push button to display the stored waypoints. Pushing the waypoint push button again will remove the waypoints not in the flight plan. Pressing the constraints push button displays FMS stored altitude and speed constraints for the displayed waypoints. In this example, there is no constraints data. The guidance function of the FMS manages horizontal and vertical control of the aircraft and engine thrust settings. The guidance function combines performance-calculated data and predictions for the selected strategic mode or current tactical situation mode, navigation information, and flight plan details to provide roll, pitch, and thrust commands. For FMS-controlled lateral navigation, the AFCAS nav mode should be engaged. This provides lateral navigation commands to AFCAS. For FMS-controlled vertical navigation, the AFCAS profile mode should be engaged. Together with the auto throttle system, the profile mode provides vertical guidance and engine thrust management to meet performance targets and predictions along the flight profile. For normal operations, the Fokker 100 is flown using the full capabilities of the FMS. The map mode is normally selected at the EFIS control panel, and flight mode panel selections are made before takeoff to allow operation of AFCAS modes. The flight directors are switched on, and the auto throttle system is armed. For full FMS operation, the nav mode and the profile mode are both engaged at the FMP. Please arm the appropriate modes by touching the correct push buttons at the flight mode panel to prepare for an FMS auto flight. Please arm the appropriate modes by touching the correct push buttons at the flight mode panel to prepare for an FMS auto flight. Please arm the appropriate modes by touching the correct push buttons at the flight mode panel to prepare for an FMS auto flight. Note that the green bars in the push buttons do not necessarily indicate that a system or mode is currently active. These lights indicate the engaged mode that will become active once certain parameters are met. Active or captured modes are displayed as flight mode annunciations on the PFD and will be discussed more fully in the AFCAS module. After liftoff, the autopilot on the side of the pilot flying should be engaged. Assume that the first officer is the pilot flying and engage the appropriate AP. With the settings as shown at the flight mode panel, the FMS nav mode will capture at 30 feet above ground level. FMS now controls the aircraft along the lateral flight path. The FMS profile function captures at thrust reduction altitude, provided the aircraft is over 400 feet AGL. AFCAS now uses vertical command signals to control aircraft pitch. With the ATS engaged, the EPA target signals control the throttles. Finally, in this section on operation, we will examine different ways of tuning radio nav aids for the FMS. As the aircraft moves along the flight plan, the FMS will auto-tune the VOR DME systems for navigation. The FMS also selects VORs and DMEs most suitable for display, provided that the ND selector on the EFIS control panel is in map or plan mode. Normally, in an FMS flight, this selector would be in the map position. Auto-tune is shown on the CDU progress page by the letter A above the tuned nav aid. As already mentioned, the FMS can make use of ILS information with localizer updating of FMS positioning. The FMS will auto-tune the DME to the ILS DME frequency if the ILS has a co-located DME, and display the DME distance at the PFD. The VOR DME tuning is manual if the EFIS display selector is in arc or rows, and the approach VOR push button is in VOR. Select VOR now at the EFIS control panel. In manual mode, the VOR DME is tuned manually from the VOR DME tuning panel on the pedestal. Manual mode is indicated by the letter M on the CDU screen. Finally, nav aids can be remotely tuned at the FMS by selecting the VOR DME identifier into the nav aid line of the CDU progress page via the scratch pad. Remote tuning is then shown by the letter R. The FMS will only use remotely tuned stations for navigation if their location is suitable. FMC failures and CDU failures, together with their indications, are discussed in the next topic on flight management computers. Various FMS-related fail messages are presented at the CDU screen. In general, these messages are presented in the CDU scratchpad area. For a complete list of FMS messages, refer to your AOM. For our purposes, we shall discuss 3 messages and appropriate action. If the FMC calculated positions differ by 5 nautical miles or more, a message, FMC position mismatch, is displayed. In RI mode, nav aids used for FMS position update can be deselected on the CDU nav aid page. If a position difference of 10 nautical miles or more occurs, the FMS will down mode to independent operation of the FMCs. If the FMCs revert to independent operation because they fail to synchronize, no remedial action can be taken. If the difference between the IRS position and the computed position is 12 nautical miles or more, the CDU displays the Verify Aircraft Position message. Nav aids used for update can be deselected if these are suspect. To conclude this topic, we will review some of the details covered. We have seen that the FMS in the Fokker 100 comprises two CDUs that allow data to be entered and reviewed, and two FMCs that perform calculations. We have seen that the FMS provides calculations for navigation, performance, guidance, and display. These calculations take data from various inputs and provide command, display, and auto-tune outputs. We have seen that the FMS provides full auto-flight guidance over the entire flight profile from origin to destination. And we have discussed the two primary modes of navigation. Finally, we have discussed the various performance modes of the FMS. For details on performance calculations following an engine out, refer to AOM